The steam rises from the kitchen vents like industrial breath. 2:47 a.m. Dannemora Maximum Security. They call it Little Siberia because the cold here doesn't just bite, it amputates. Cell block D is silent except for the rhythmic drip of condensation on cast iron pipes, the kind of silence that has weight. Eddie Mouthpiece Carbone sits on his bunk, hands resting on his knees. He's not handcuffed. That's the first sign something is wrong. His fingers, stubby, dirt-caked, twitch every 4 seconds. A nervous tell. He's staring at the door, but he's not waiting for guards. 20 feet down the corridor, a Zippo lighter flicks open. Once, twice. The sound echoes like a metronome counting down to 0. The flame illuminates a face, angular, ageless, with eyes that don't blink. Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson doesn't smoke. The lighter is a signal. In the guard station, Officer McKinney checks his watch. 2:48 a.m. He stands, walks to the coffee pot, and pours a cup he won't drink. His partner, Officer Delacroix, follows him. They both face the wall. On the stainless steel clock above the door, the second hand ticks forward. At 2:49 a.m., the lights in cell block D go dark. By morning, Eddie Carbone will have no hands. The fatal question. In a world where power is the only currency, what happens when a man forgets the price of disrespect? Dannemora, 1957. The prison sits 20 miles from the Canadian border, a Gothic fortress built on bedrock and fur. Inside, 2,400 men live in a system more organized than most cities. There are tax collectors, bankers, enforcers, and kings. At the top of this feudal chain, Bumpy Johnson. He's been inside for 11 months. Racketeering, narcotics conspiracy. The charges don't matter. What matters is this. Bumpy controls the yard the way a maestro controls an orchestra. He doesn't shout, he doesn't threaten, he orchestrates. The morning routine is liturgy. 6 a.m., the bell. Prisoners file into the mess hall, steel trays, watered-down eggs, coffee that tastes like rust. Bumpy sits at the third table from the east wall. The seat is never taken before he arrives. No guard enforces this rule. It simply is. Around him, the invisible network hums. Bumpy's intelligence system operates on 3 tiers. Tier 1, the Watchers. 7 men positioned throughout the prison. They don't speak to Bumpy directly. They speak to intermediaries. A janitor named Moses collects discarded notes from trash cans in the administrative wing. A kitchen worker named Reggie observes which guards eat together, which ones argue, which ones take cigarettes from the wrong prisoners. Tier 2. The accountants. 2 bookkeepers track debts, favors, and contraband. Every pack of cigarettes, every smuggled letter, every protection racket is logged in a system more precise than the warden's official records. The ledger isn't written, it's memorized. If a guard is late on a gambling debt, Bumpy knows before the man's wife does. Tier 3. The enforcers. These men don't wear uniforms, but they have authority. They settle disputes in the laundry room, the machine shop, the yard. Violence is a language here, but Bumpy prefers it spoken as whisper, not a scream. This system costs money. Bumpy's outside operations, numbers running, policy banks, protection in Harlem, generate $40,000 a week. 10% flows into Dannemora. That's $4,000 a week split among guards, suppliers, and fixers. Officer McKinney earns $68 a week from the state. He earns $300 a week from Bumpy. The math is simple. Loyalty follows the ledger, but respect is free, and it's the one thing you cannot buy back once you've sold it. Edward Carbone stands 5'8" in prison boots. At 34, he's already served time in 3 different facilities. The jacket says armed robbery and aggravated assault. 8 to 15 years. His crew back in Brooklyn was bottom tier, connected to nobody important. No family ties to the major families. No leverage. Just muscle and a mouth that never learned when to close. The prison psychologist's notes flag him for narcissistic tendencies, verbal aggression compensating for physical stature. He's got 3 prior disciplinary actions for insubordination. Guards who wrote him up for talking back, for challenging orders, for thinking his words carried weight they didn't. In general population, he's a moderate threat. Put him in a corner, challenge him, and that threat level spikes to critical. They call him Mouthpiece, not because he was anybody's lawyer. They call him that because his inability to shut up is legendary. It got him transferred from Sing Sing after he testified against a cellmate. Rats don't usually last long in maximum security, but Carbone has protection. His cousin's connected to a union boss who greases the right palms. That protection makes him think he's bulletproof. He's wrong. The incident happens on a Tuesday, June 18th, 1957. The temperature outside is 68 degrees. Inside cell block D it's 74 and rising. Bumpy is playing chess in the day room. His opponent is a forger named Sammy Fountain Pen Rizzo. The board is handmade, carved from soap and stained with coffee grounds. The pieces are uneven, but Bumpy moves them with the precision of a surgeon. He's 3 moves from checkmate. Eddie Carbone enters the day room. He's been in Dannemora for 6 weeks, a transfer from Sing Sing after he testified against a cellmate. That's the first problem. Rats have a short lifespan in maximum security, but Carbone has protection. His cousin is connected to a union boss who pays the right people. That protection makes him bold. Stupidly bold. He walks past Bumpy's table, stops, looks down at the chessboard. That all you got, old man? Carbone's voice is nasal, a Queen's accent sharpened by years of talking over people. Chess? My grandmother plays chess. You supposed to be some kind of king? The day room doesn't go silent. That would be too obvious. Instead, conversations shift. Volume drops by 30%. Everyone is listening, but no one is looking. Bumpy doesn't raise his eyes. He moves his queen. Checkmate. Fountain pen, Rizzo nods, concedes, starts resetting the board. Carbone doesn't leave. He leans on the table, palms flat against the steel. I'm talking to you, Johnson. You deaf or just old? Now, Bumpy looks up. His expression doesn't change. No anger, no surprise. Just calculation. He studies Carbone the way a jeweler studies a flawed diamond, assessing where the fracture will spread. You got a problem, friend? Bumpy's voice is low, textured like gravel wrapped in velvet. Yeah, I got a problem. Carbone grins. He thinks he's winning. Problem is, everyone in here acts like you're some kind of god, but you're just another con. You bleed same as me. Bumpy leans back. His hands rest on his knees, the same position Carbone will assume in 6 hours. You're right, Bumpy says. I do bleed. Carbone smirks, misreading the moment as submission. But you'll bleed first. Carbone laughs. It's forced, too loud. He slaps the table and walks away. Behind him, the day room resumes normal volume, but the message has been sent. Not by Carbone, by Bumpy. What happens next is a masterclass in institutional power. At 4 p.m. during shift change, Officer McKinney receives a note. It's not written. It's delivered verbally by Moses, the janitor, Carbone, cell 47, tonight. At 5:30 p.m., the kitchen supervisor accidentally spills grease on the floor near the guard station exit. It will take 45 minutes to clean. That delays the evening rounds. At 7 p.m., Fountain Pen Rizzo initiates a loud argument in cell block C. 2 guards rush to break it up. Cell block D is now understaffed. At 9 p.m., the prison doctor is called to the infirmary. A prisoner has stomach pains. The doctor will be occupied for 2 hours, logging symptoms, running tests. There is no emergency, but there will be. At 11:30 p.m., Carbone's cellmate, a meth cook named Danny Ortiz, is transferred to solitary. Official reason, Contraband discovery. Unofficial reason. Ortiz will testify he saw nothing, heard nothing, knew nothing. By 2 a.m., Eddie Carbone is alone. The week of June 10th through the 17th, Harlem Policy Bank No. 4 clears $6,240. Bumpy's cut is 10%. $624 flows into Dannemora, laundered through 3 different channels, never touching the same hands twice. Officer McKinney gets $150 for manipulating the guard shift. Officer Delacroix gets the same for witness suppression, for standing at his post and staring at the wall when the screams start. Kitchen Supervisor Hayes takes $50 for the grease spill that delays the evening rounds. Dr. Edmund Pierce gets $100 for the medical diversion, for spending 2 hours on a prisoner with phantom stomach pains. The warden's assistant gets $75 for authorizing the cellmate transfer. The cell block foreman gets $50 for knowing which breaker controls the lights in Block D. Total cost for the Carbone operation, $624. Net cost to Bumpy, $0. It's covered by the weekly tithe, a line item in a budget that exists only in the memory of 2 men who never write anything down. Efficiency rating, 100%. Witnesses, 0. Official record, none. The math is clean. The execution will be messier. But here's the turn, the thing no one expected. At 2:35 a.m., when the lights go dark and 3 men enter Carbone's cell, they find him awake. Not just awake, prepared. He's jammed the cell door with a torn bedsheet wedged into the locking mechanism. It buys him 11 seconds. 11 seconds to scream. The scream echoes through cell block D like a klaxon. Prisoners stir. 2 guards in the east wing hear it. Officer McKinney curses under his breath. This wasn't part of the plan. Silence was the agreement. The 3 men, 2 enforcers named Cisco and Terrence, plus a new recruit called Twitch, force the door. Carbone swings a sharpened toothbrush. It catches Cisco across the cheek, opening a gash that will require 9 stitches. Now it's personal. What was supposed to be surgical becomes savage. Cisco slams Carbone against the wall. Twitch holds him. Terrence produces the tools, a straight razor, a leather belt, and a jar of industrial solvent stolen from the machine shop. The belt goes around Carbone's wrists. Tight. Circulation stops in 90 seconds. The razor starts at the base of the thumb. Carbone screams again. Louder. Officer McKinney and Officer Delacroix stand at their post, facing the wall, coffee cups in hand. The clock ticks. 2:37 a.m. 2:38 a.m. The job takes 12 minutes. That's 8 minutes longer than planned. When they leave, Eddie Carbone is still conscious. That's the worst part. He's staring at the stumps where his hands used to be, wrapped in torn sheets that are already soaked through. The solvent was supposed to cauterize the wounds, slow the bleeding. It doesn't work perfectly. He has maybe 40 minutes before shock sets in. At 3:10 a.m., the lights come back on. Officer McKinney discovers Carbone during his rounds. He radios for medical assistance. Dr. Pierce arrives at 3:22 a.m., exactly 12 minutes after the emergency call. That's slow for a life-threatening injury. Standard protocol is 4 minutes. Carbone is transported to the infirmary. He survives. But his hands are gone, severed at the wrists with the precision of a butcher breaking down a carcass. The official report will state self-inflicted injury during psychotic episode. Nobody believes it. Everybody accepts it. Dr. Pierce's report hits the warden's desk at 8 a.m. Edward Carbone, prisoner number 58,472, admitted to the infirmary at 3:22 a.m. with bilateral traumatic amputation. Both hands severed at the carpal-metacarpal junction, the wrist in layman's terms. Blood loss estimated at 1,800 cubic centimeters. That's class 3 hemorrhage. Another 200 cc's and he would have died in the cell. The amputation edges show characteristics consistent with sharp force trauma. A razor, most likely, or something similar. There are ligature marks on both wrists. Restraints applied before the cutting started. Chemical burns ring the wound sites. Unknown solvent, probably industrial cleaning agent. No defensive wounds on the forearms or torso. The victim, patient, officially, was restrained before the attack. He was semi-conscious when they found him. Shock symptoms were already presenting. He needed emergency hemostasis, wound debridement, and enough morphine to keep him from going into cardiac arrest from the pain. The patient claims 3 men entered his cell. No corroborating witnesses. The cell door mechanism was jammed from the inside with his own bedsheet. The investigator's note at the bottom of the report is clinical, pending psychiatric evaluation. Probable self-harm. The word probable is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Everyone knows it, nobody says it. Morning breaks over Dannemora like a judge's gavel. The prison doesn't stop. Bells ring, men file to breakfast. The routine is liturgy, and liturgy demands repetition. Bumpy Johnson sits at his table. Third from the east wall, his coffee is black, no sugar. He reads a day-old copy of the New York-Amsterdam News. The headline is about integration in Little Rock. He turns the page slowly, deliberately. His hands are steady. Across the mess hall, Cisco sits with a bandage on his cheek. He eats oatmeal, doesn't speak. In the infirmary, Eddie Carbone lies in a bed with rails, arms elevated on pillows, stumps wrapped in gauze that will need changing every 4 hours for the next 6 weeks. He stares at the ceiling. A psychiatric evaluator will visit at noon. Carbone will be diagnosed with delusional disorder. He'll be transferred to a psychiatric facility within the month. He'll spend the next 3 years there, learning to eat with prosthetic hooks. He'll never testify about what happened. Not because he's afraid of retaliation, because there's no one to testify against. The 3 men who entered his cell. He never saw their faces. The guards who ignored his screams. They were following protocol. The system that allowed it. It doesn't exist on paper. At 9 a.m., Warden Harold Simmons receives a report on the incident. He reads it twice, initials it, files it. At 9:15 a.m., he walks to cell block D and requests a meeting with Bumpy Johnson. They meet in the day room. No guards present, just 2 men having a conversation. "This can't happen again," the warden says. His voice is firm but not aggressive. He knows the reality. Bumpy controls more of this prison than he does. Bumpy nods. "Won't. I need to believe that. You will." The warden leaves. Bumpy returns to his chess game. What happened to Eddie Carbone isn't a tragedy. It's a lesson. And lessons must be witnessed to be learned. Within 48 hours, the story spreads through every cell block, every work detail, every corner of Dannemora. The details mutate. Some say Carbone lost his hands, others say his fingers. A few claim his tongue. But the core message remains. Respect Bumpy Johnson, or pay with your body. The prison stabilizes. Disputes drop by 40% over the next month. Guards report fewer incidents. The warden credits improved behavioral protocols. He's not wrong. The protocol is fear. Outside in Harlem, Bumpy's reputation grows. When he's released 18 months later, in December 1958, he walks out of Dannemora to a neighborhood that treats him like a returning emperor. The numbers game flourishes. The police captains look the other way. The Italian families negotiate, not dictate. And somewhere in a psychiatric ward in upstate New York, Eddie Carbone learns to button his shirt with hooks. Power isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with sirens and badges. Real power is Officer McKinney staring at a wall. Real power is a Zippo lighter that doesn't burn tobacco. Real power is a man sitting at a chessboard while another man loses his hands 3 floors above. Bumpy Johnson didn't invent the system. He simply understood it better than anyone else. Prisons, like cities, like countries, run on an economy of fear and respect. The currency is loyalty. The interest is pain. Eddie Carbone's mistake wasn't mocking Bumpy. His mistake was believing that words don't have consequences. In the world Bumpy built, every word is a contract. Every insult is a debt, and debts in that world are paid in flesh. Dannemora still stands. The cells are still full. The guards still look away when it's convenient. And somewhere, in the collective memory of every man who passed through those walls, the legend persists. Never forget the hands of power, because power never forgets you.